November 22, 1963, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy was meant to be a precise, orchestrated event. But in the aftermath of Dallas, the reality of the conspiracy was far more sinister than anyone could imagine. Beneath the surface of historical accounts and official statements lay a hidden horror, and the truth was far more monstrous than the public ever knew. In the days leading up to the assassination, a secret government agency, known only to a few, had begun to take notice of something unsettling. This agency, known as the Black Wardens, operated outside the bounds of conventional oversight. Their mission was to ensure the stability of the nation by any means necessary. They had their fingers in countless covert operations, from espionage to psychological manipulation, and they prided themselves on maintaining control over every possible outcome. The assassination was a pivotal moment, an event so critical that the Black Wardens had to act. They had a vested interest in the preservation of the status quo and, more crucially, in the erasure of anything that threatened their dark plans. November 23, 1963. The night after the assassination was a time of frenzy. Rumors swirled around the corridors of power, and panic gripped those who feared the repercussions of the event. The Black Wardens were not immune to this chaos, but their focus remained singular: to retrieve and contain any information that might expose their hand in the assassination. Special Agent Marcus Hale, a seasoned operative within the Black Wardens, was tasked with a crucial assignment. Hale was a man of quiet intensity, with a reputation for getting results no matter the cost. He had been given the responsibility of securing a mysterious briefcase that had been left behind in the chaos of Dallas. This briefcase was not just any ordinary case. It contained evidence of the Black Wardens' involvement in the plot to kill Kennedy. The briefcase was said to be locked with a complex combination that only a select few knew. It had been accidentally left behind in a disarrayed office, and the Black Wardens could not afford to let its contents fall into the wrong hands. Hale's mission was clear: retrieve the briefcase and ensure its secrecy at all costs. November 24, 1963. As Hale navigated through the twisted alleys and back roads of Dallas, a sense of foreboding settled over him. The city seemed eerily quiet, as though it were holding its breath, waiting for the next horrifying revelation. Hale arrived at the office where the briefcase had been left. The building was abandoned, its windows shattered, and the darkness seemed to swallow the street. Inside, the office was a mess of overturned furniture and scattered papers. Hale moved swiftly, his heart pounding as he searched for the briefcase. A cold draft swept through the room, carrying with it a strange whispering that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The whispers grew louder, forming indistinct phrases that Hale couldn't quite make out. With trembling hands, Hale finally spotted the briefcase hidden beneath a pile of debris. He knelt down, his fingers brushing against the cold metal. As he prepared to open it, he felt a shiver run down his spine. The whispers had transformed into a chilling chant, an otherworldly incantation that made his blood run cold. Hale hesitated for a moment before unlocking the briefcase. What he saw inside was not what he expected. The briefcase contained a collection of photographs, documents, and a small, intricately carved box. The photographs were disturbing, images of Kennedy's final moments, but with something else in the background: shadowy figures with haunting eyes, watching the assassination unfold. November 25, 1963. Hale returned to his headquarters with the briefcase, but the unsettling atmosphere from Dallas lingered. As he examined the documents, he began to uncover a web of connections that linked the Black Wardens to the assassination. The figures in the photographs seemed to be members of an ancient cult, one that believed in the power of bloodshed to bring about a new era of control. The small carved box intrigued Hale. It was covered in symbols he didn't recognize, and as he examined it more closely, he felt a dark presence emanating from it. Despite his training, he couldn't shake the feeling that something malevolent was contained within. Hale decided to consult with a senior member of the Black Wardens, an enigmatic figure known only as Director Graves. Graves was a man of extraordinary influence, and his knowledge of the occult was both legendary and feared. November 26, 1963. Agent Hale arrived at the Black Warden's headquarters, a clandestine facility buried deep within a labyrinth of underground tunnels. Director Graves was waiting for him in a dimly lit chamber adorned with ancient artifacts and strange symbols. "Marcus," Graves said, his voice low and grave. "I trust you have the briefcase?" Hale nodded, placing the briefcase on the table. "I've found some disturbing evidence, Director. The photographs and documents point to something far beyond ordinary political intrigue." Graves examined the contents with a cold, calculating gaze. His eyes lingered on the small carved box. "This box," he said, "contains more than you realize. It is part of an ancient ritual, one that has been used by the Black Wardens for centuries." Hale's curiosity was piqued. What kind of ritual? Graves hesitated, then spoke in a whisper. "The ritual of the Dark Covenant. It's said to summon entities from beyond, beings that can influence events on a grand scale. The assassination was not merely a political act, it was a sacrifice, a way to bind these entities to our will." Hale's mind raced. "Are you saying that the Black Wardens orchestrated Kennedy's assassination as part of this ritual?" Graves nodded. "Precisely. And now that the ritual has been completed, we must ensure that no one discovers the truth. The entities are bound to our will, but their influence must remain hidden." The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on Hale. The Black Wardens had used the assassination of a president as a means to wield power beyond comprehension. The ritual was complete, but its dark influence was far from over. November 27, 1963. Hale was troubled by the revelation. As he delved deeper into the documents, he discovered accounts of other events orchestrated by the Black Wardens to further their dark agenda. The ritual was just one part of a larger plan to reshape the world according to their vision. He began to notice strange occurrences around him, whispers in the dark, fleeting shadows, and an oppressive sense of dread that seemed to follow him wherever he went. It was as though the very fabric of reality was being twisted by the forces the Black Wardens had unleashed. One night, as Hale reviewed the photographs, he noticed something chilling in the background of one of the images. Among the shadowy figures, there was a face, pale and gaunt, with eyes that seemed to pierce through the photograph. The face seemed familiar, as though it belonged to someone he had seen before. Driven by a need to understand, Hale began to investigate the origins of the figures in the photographs. What he discovered was a web of ancient lore and occult practices that defied explanation. The more he uncovered, the more he realized that the Black Wardens had tapped into something far older and more malevolent than anyone could have imagined. November 28, 1963. Desperation gripped Hale as he realized that the influence of the entities was growing stronger. The whispers had turned into voices, and the shadows seemed to move with a life of their own. He knew that he had to confront Director Graves and demand answers. He entered Graves's chamber, where the director was performing a ritualistic incantation. The air was thick with incense, and the symbols on the walls seemed to writhe in the flickering candlelight. "Director Graves," Hale said, his voice trembling, "I need to know the full extent of what we've done. The entities, they're growing stronger." Graves looked up, his expression unreadable. "The entities have been bound, but their influence is not easily contained. We must continue to exert control over them, or they will escape our grasp." Hale's heart pounded. "What happens if they escape?" Graves's eyes darkened. "If the entities are freed, their power will unleash chaos and destruction. We must ensure that their presence remains hidden and their influence controlled." The weight of Graves's words was a heavy burden. Hale knew that the Black Wardens were walking a dangerous line, and the consequences of failure were dire. November 29, 1963. Hale's investigation led him to an unsettling conclusion. The entities were not merely a figment of ritualistic imagination, they were real, and their influence was manifesting in the world around him. The assassination had opened a gateway, and the Black Wardens were struggling to keep it closed. Hale began to suspect that there were others who were aware of the truth. Whispers of a secret society opposed to the Black Wardens had reached his ears. This society, known as the Illuminators, had dedicated itself to uncovering the hidden truths and preventing the entities from wreaking havoc. He decided to seek out the Illuminators and learn more about their efforts. In doing so, he hoped to find a way to counteract the influence of the entities and prevent further catastrophe. November 30th, 1963. Hale's search for the Illuminators took him to the fringes of society, where whispers of hidden knowledge and secret resistance were commonplace. His investigation led him to a small, unassuming bookstore in a quiet part of town. The shop, Eldritch Tomes and Antiquities, had a reputation among those who dabbled in esoteric knowledge. The shopkeeper, an elderly woman named Mrs. Calloway, had an air of mystery about her. Her eyes seemed to hold ancient secrets, and her presence was oddly calming amidst the growing sense of dread. Hale approached her cautiously. "I'm looking for information," Hale began, trying to mask his urgency. "Something related to ancient rituals and secret societies." Mrs. Calloway's eyes narrowed as she studied Hale. "The quest for forbidden knowledge is not without its dangers," she said softly. "But I sense you are not here by mere chance. The forces you seek to understand are powerful and beyond mortal control." Hale nodded. "I need to find the Illuminators. I believe they might be able to help." Mrs. Calloway's expression grew serious. "The Illuminators are a shadowy group known to few. They seek to counteract the darkness that some have unleashed. If you are determined to find them, you must be prepared to confront the unknown." She led Hale to a hidden compartment in the back of the store, revealing a dusty volume bound in leather. "This book contains symbols and rites that may guide you. Be cautious. Seeking out the Illuminators is perilous." Hale accepted the book with a sense of foreboding. The symbols on the cover seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching him. December 1st, 1963. The book contained strange rituals and ancient symbols, as well as accounts of otherworldly entities. Hale spent the day poring over its contents, trying to decipher the cryptic messages. The more he read, the more he realized the extent of the Black Wardens' malevolent influence. The rituals performed by the Black Wardens were not just ceremonial, they had unleashed entities whose power was growing with each passing day. One passage stood out. "To bind the darkness is to invite its eternal presence. The price of control is the relinquishment of one's own soul. Beware, for the entities seek to break free and spread their corruption." The word sent a chill down Hale's spine. The realization that the entities could break free and wreak havoc on the world was a terrifying prospect. He knew he had to act quickly. December 2nd, 1963. Hale decided to reach out to the Illuminators using the clues from the book. According to its instructions, he needed to perform a ritual to contact them. The ritual required specific ingredients and precise incantations, all of which were detailed in the book. With a growing sense of urgency, Hale gathered the necessary items and prepared for the ritual. As night fell, Hale set up the ritual in a secluded area, far from prying eyes. He drew the symbols on the ground and arranged the candles according to the instructions. As he began the incantation, the air grew colder and the shadows seemed to deepen around him. The ritual was intense, and Hale felt a strange otherworldly energy coursing through him. The candles flickered wildly, and a thick fog began to form in the clearing. The mist coalesced into a shape. A figure emerged from the darkness, draped in a hooded cloak. "Who dares summon the Illuminators?" the figure asked, its voice resonating with an eerie echo. "I am Agent Marcus Hale," he replied. "I seek your help. The Black Wardens have unleashed forces beyond our control. I need to know how to stop them." The Illuminator studied Hale with an inscrutable gaze. The Black Wardens have indeed tampered with forces that should remain hidden. Their ritual has opened a gateway that can only be closed through great sacrifice and unyielding resolve. Hale's heart sank. What must I do? The Illuminator's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. You must confront the source of the darkness itself. The entities cannot be controlled by mere mortals. You must sever the connection between them and the Black Wardens, or face the consequences of their unrestrained power. December 3rd, 1963. The Illuminator's words weighed heavily on Hale. He knew that the task ahead was daunting, but there was no turning back. He had to confront Director Graves and the Black Wardens, and find a way to close the gateway before it was too late. Returning to the Black Warden's headquarters, Hale found the atmosphere more oppressive than ever. The influence of the entities was growing stronger, and the air seemed to vibrate with an unseen menace. Hale made his way to Director Graves's chamber, determined to confront him about the ritual and its consequences. December 4th, 1963. As Hale entered Graves's chamber, he found the director engrossed in another occult ritual. The symbols on the walls seemed to pulse with an unnatural light, and the room was filled with a foreboding energy. Director Graves, Hale said, his voice steady despite his fear. The entities are growing stronger. I've spoken with the Illuminators. They've warned me that we must close the gateway. Graves looked up, his face a mask of cold determination. The gateway is already open. The entities are bound, but their influence cannot be easily contained. To close the gateway would require a sacrifice, a soul to replace the one that was lost. Hale's blood ran cold. A soul? Are you saying that someone must die to close the gateway? Graves nodded. It is the only way. The Black Wardens have made their choices, and now we must deal with the consequences. Hale's mind raced. He couldn't allow an innocent to be sacrificed. He needed to find another way to close the gateway and stop the entities from wreaking havoc on the world. December 5th, 1963. Hale's search for a solution led him to the deepest archives of the Black Wardens. He hoped to find any reference to an alternative method for closing the gateway. The archives were vast, filled with ancient tomes and forbidden knowledge. As he sifted through the dusty volumes, he stumbled upon a hidden manuscript. The manuscript described a forgotten ritual, a way to seal the gateway without the need for a soul's sacrifice. The ritual was complex and dangerous, but it offered a glimmer of hope. Hale realized he had to act quickly. He gathered the necessary components for the ritual and prepared to perform it in a secluded location away from the Black Warden's watchful eyes. December 6th, 1963. With the ritual components ready, Hale set up the scene in the remote location described in the manuscript. The night was eerily quiet, and the air was thick with anticipation. Hale began the incantation, his hands steady despite the gravity of the situation. As the ritual progressed, he felt the oppressive presence of the entities growing stronger. The darkness seemed to close in around him, and the whispers of the entities grew louder, their voices a cacophony of dread. Hale pressed on, determined to see the ritual through. The symbols glowed with an otherworldly light, and the air crackled with energy. The entity's influence began to wane, and the gateway slowly started to close. But just as he neared completion, Hale heard a chilling sound, a distant echoing laugh that seemed to come from the very depths of the darkness. The entities were fighting back, desperate to remain free. Hale knew he had to finish the ritual or risk unleashing chaos upon the world. With every ounce of strength, he completed the final incantation. December 7th, 1963. As dawn broke, Hale felt a profound sense of relief. The gateway had been sealed, and the entity's influence had receded. The air was lighter, and the shadows no longer seemed to writhe with malevolent intent. But Hale knew that the battle was far from over. The Black Wardens would not take kindly to his actions, and the forces he had confronted were still lurking in the shadows. The world was safe, for now, but the darkness would always be there, waiting for another opportunity to emerge. Hale resolved to continue his fight against the hidden forces of darkness. The Illuminators had given him a glimpse into a world beyond the ordinary, and he knew that the struggle against the Black Wardens and their dark agenda was far from finished. As he left the remote location and returned to the city, Hale looked back at the horizon, knowing that the fight against the darkness was far from over. The shadows of the past would continue to haunt him, but he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. December 8, 1963. The battle against the Black Wardens and the forces they had unleashed had left Hale weary but resolute. The closure of the gateway had been a significant victory, but the Black Wardens were not likely to abandon their dark pursuits so easily. Returning to the city, Hale noticed a distinct change in the atmosphere. The streets, once filled with an unsettling quiet, now seemed almost too normal. The sinister whispers that had plagued him were gone, but a residual sense of unease lingered. He knew he had to remain vigilant. The Black Wardens would undoubtedly be regrouping and planning their next move. Hale's sense of duty was stronger than ever, and he was determined to prevent any further calamities. December 9, 1963. Despite the uneasy calm in the city, Hale continued his investigation into the Black Wardens and their dark agenda. The closure of the gateway had not quelled his suspicion that there was a deeper, more insidious connection between the government and the malevolent forces he had encountered. Hale's investigation led him to a secret facility rumored to be the central hub of the Black Wardens' operations. The facility was hidden deep within a remote wooded area, far from the prying eyes of the public. It was a place where the darkest secrets of the government were kept, and Hale knew he had to uncover the truth. As he approached the facility, Hale felt a growing sense of foreboding. The trees around him seemed to close in, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out to him. He pressed on, driven by the need to expose the truth and bring justice to those who had been wronged. December 10, 1963. The facility was heavily guarded, but Hale's experience allowed him to slip past the security measures undetected. Inside, he found a labyrinth of corridors filled with classified documents and strange, arcane symbols. It was clear that the Black Wardens were not merely a rogue faction but a deeply entrenched part of a larger, sinister operation. As Hale delved deeper into the facility, he stumbled upon a hidden chamber. The walls of the chamber were lined with monitors, displaying footage of various covert operations and high-level meetings. One monitor showed a recording of Director Graves in a private conversation with other high-ranking officials. "The ritual was a success," Graves said in the footage. "Kennedy's death has served our purpose, and the entities are now under our control." One of the officials replied, "And what about Hale? He's been meddling in our affairs." Graves's face was grim. "He's a problem, but one we can handle. The real issue is ensuring that the influence of the entities remains hidden. We cannot afford any leaks." The conversation made Hale's blood run cold. The Black Wardens had not only orchestrated Kennedy's assassination, but had used it as a means to control powerful entities. The government had been complicit in this dark conspiracy, manipulating events behind the scenes. December 11th, 1963. Hale knew he had to expose the truth. The Black Wardens were a dark secret, but their influence was rooted in the very fabric of the government. The footage he had uncovered was irrefutable evidence of a malevolent agenda that had been hidden from the public. He decided to take his findings to the media, hoping to bring the truth to light. But as he prepared to leave the facility, he was ambushed by Black Wardens operatives. They had discovered his intrusion and were determined to silence him. A fierce confrontation ensued. Hale fought valiantly, but the odds were against him. He managed to escape, but not without sustaining serious injuries. The operatives were relentless, and Hale knew that he had to act quickly to ensure his survival and the dissemination of the truth. December 12, 1963. Hale's injuries forced him into hiding. He reached out to trusted allies, sharing the evidence he had gathered. It was a desperate measure, but he hoped that exposing the Black Wardens' involvement in Kennedy's assassination and their dark rituals would lead to a broader investigation. As Hale lay low, he monitored the media for any signs of his story breaking through. The government's response was swift and ruthless. Any mention of the Black Wardens or the evidence Hale had uncovered was quickly suppressed. The media was under intense pressure to ignore or discredit the revelations. December 13, 1963. Despite the government's efforts to suppress the truth, Hale's allies managed to leak some of the evidence to independent journalists and activists. The story began to gain traction, and public outrage grew. The once hidden conspiracy was now the subject of intense scrutiny. The Black Wardens were exposed as a secretive and malevolent faction within the government, responsible for orchestrating Kennedy's assassination and engaging in occult practices. The revelation shook the foundations of public trust in the government and led to widespread demands for accountability. Director Graves and other high-ranking officials were brought to trial, and the full extent of their dark deeds was laid bare. The Black Wardens' influence was dismantled, and efforts were made to sever the ties between the government and the malevolent entities they had sought to control. December 14, 1963. As the dust settled and the government faced the consequences of its actions, Hale emerged from hiding. The world had been forever changed by the revelations, and the dark forces that had been manipulated were now exposed. The struggle to contain these forces was ongoing, but the truth had prevailed. Hale's efforts had not been in vain. The Black Warden's malevolent agenda had been brought to light, and the public was now aware of the hidden darkness that had lurked behind the scenes. The fight against the forces of darkness continued, but the victory was a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of those who dared to confront the unknown. As Hale looked toward the future, he knew that the shadows of the past would always linger, but he was prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that the light of truth had the power to dispel even the darkest of conspiracies. The end of one chapter marked the beginning of another. The government's dark secrets had been exposed, and the battle against the malevolent forces was far from over. Hale was ready to continue the fight, driven by a relentless quest for justice and the unwavering belief that the truth could overcome the darkness.